call to order our May 12th staff meeting. We have lots of things on the agenda, so we're going to get started. And our first item on the agenda is Economic Impact Program Grant Recommendations, and we have a few people listed, so I'll just let Kelly come up and get it started. Morning, Kelly.
Good morning, commissioners. Today, myself and April Gillelli are presenting the 2026 Economic Impact Program funding recommendations. And of course, once we get the presentation up, I'll start rolling through it. I did want to point out, thank you to the Community Development Department intern, Chase Poindexter, to help craft this presentation. We love our interns, they're phenomenal, so I wanted to make sure he received recognition for it too. So thank you. As you may remember, last year, Hamilton County's Hamilton County's Planning and Development Community Development Division, and the Department of Economic Development, we partnered with Alloy to establish the Economic Impact Program, which combines the Community Development Block Grants and Community Revitalization, the former Community Revitalization Grant funding, the general funds. We combine the two into one streamlined process to support strategic large-scale investments that generate some really positive and significant economic impact across these Hamilton County communities. And so with that, I just wanted to give a refresher on that. We're in year 2 of this program. And our 2026 budget for this program totals approximately a total $2.2 million, including $1.5 million in general fund and just over $700,000 in CDBG funds. And for the 2026 cycle, the program remained incredibly competitive, as we received 14 applications totaling more than $4 million in requests and representing nearly $27 million in total project costs. And given the strong demand, as you all know, we have an advisory committee who oversees the scoring of these projects, and we prioritize projects based on readiness, economic impact, project need, project support, and place-based investments. And to share a little bit more about, the evaluation criteria, you'll see here some more detailed criteria that the advisory committee evaluates on. Overall, we look at projects that are implementation ready and positioned for near-term impact. So key factors include site control and readiness, economic development potential, leveraged investment, job creation, alignment with local planning efforts, and of course, demonstrated community support. Excuse me. This slide here shows a snapshot of the Economic Impact Program funding since the program launched last year. So this includes 2025 awardees and the 2026 funding recommendations, which those are in green. And then these projects, these reflect, I always love these visual maps because these reflect the communities across Hamilton County. And you can see the variety of efforts, which is not included on here, but this includes business district improvements, this includes redevelopment, this includes infrastructure, and of course, this impacts small business growth as well. So you can just see the wide variety of communities that are impacted here with these grants. Now to roll into the funding recommendations, just here's an overall snapshot. But just to reiterate before we dive into these a little deeper, the recommended projects, these demonstrate, strong project readiness, clear development goals, and of course, meaningful potential for economic impact. These recommendations prioritize projects where county investment can help attract additional private and public investment, and support broader economic activity that has a ripple effect across the county. We're really excited about the long-term impact of all of these investments that I'm about to go through. We think that, we appreciate the opportunities to continue this program that just continues to support economic impact, revitalization, and community investment across the county. So now myself and April are going to go through the recommended projects. So the first one is Sycamore Township. So Sycamore Township, this is a $650,000 grant to support the redevelopment of a blighted portion of Reading Road corridor. This includes acquisition and reconfiguration of more than 30 acres to create a site-ready industrial and employment hub. This is an incredibly large-scale redevelopment opportunity along Reading Road. There's a lot of leverage here with these funds, as $4.3 million has already been committed through SORTA. And this is just a strong example of transforming, underutilized land into a significant employment hub. For the Village of Silverton requests $400,000 to make do everything from paving, lighting, drainage improvements to 2 existing gravel parking lots in its business district. This project allows the city to increase its parking capacity, but will also support local businesses by providing accessibility and improving the overall aesthetic of the district. This supports a plan that they have to revitalize their business district as well. So this supports core business district infrastructure improvements and improves accessibility and safety, and attracts everything from local businesses, helps them retain their businesses, and attracts visitors to the area as well. And it builds upon the revitalization efforts and blight removal that's already been underway in the community. For the Village of Woodlawn, they request $375,000. So this is grant funding to acquire an underutilized commercial property. This is a part of a long-term strategy in Woodlawn to assemble land along the Springfield Pike corridor. This project supports efforts to improve traffic flow, better access to public facilities, and future redevelopment opportunities. This aligns closely with a broader Springfield Pike redevelopment goals, as grant funding and will support phase 4 of the Springfield Pike and Grove redevelopment plan. It's also supporting strategic land assembly, supporting their long-term corridor redevelopment in Woodlawn. All right, I'm going to tag in April.
Hi, and I'm going to apologize in advance to you because I know that you pronounce it the city of Reading, but I'm from Yellow Springs and I can't help but call it Reading. So the city of Reading, apologies, I think. The city of Reading asked for $400,000 to stabilize what we have all seen as the blighted rally site. I know we've seen it as we drive down Reading Road. It's been sitting there. And what a lot of people don't know, it is the gateway to what is considered to be the largest bridal district in the country. Reading has that claim to fame. They currently employ over 350 people in that neighborhood and have 54 businesses that will be supported by this gateway structure. The intent of the property, once it is demolished, is for Valley Bank to expand. And with that expansion, Valley Bank will be bringing on 10 full-time jobs to the community, as well as providing services to the community that total around $2.2 million altogether. We can't say enough about the bridal district there. It's a destination, and we want to keep it that way. We want to make sure that people have a proper gateway when they're coming into the bridal district, so that Reading can continue expanding on this property and benefiting from what comes with that. Oops. Next is the city of Sharonville. The city of Sharonville requested $325,000 to develop a shared parking lot for what is a $75 million project. The project supports not only additional businesses, but 225 new units of family-style housing, which is extremely important right now. The chamber has made comments about bringing businesses into the community and the problem of not having the proper housing for those businesses that do come into the community. So we applaud the city of Sharonville for their efforts to bring that housing into the community, along with these new jobs and supporting the existing 20 businesses that they do have there already. This parking lot will provide a better quality of life for the businesses as well as the community in general and the residents that will be moving into the 225 family units that will be created there. So super excited about that one. Love the idea of the housing piece. We love those mixed-use projects. They're really wonderful because they bring all components of what makes businesses work into the community. So the next steps after this is after we get your blessing, we will notify the communities of the funding and start their funding agreements. We'll award the contracts, and then we've done this before, present them all to you all for your approval. And then we move forward into our EIP seminar. We're always striving to bring more communities into this project. So we've started the process. As soon as we're finished with this one, we hit the ground running. We, in August, we'll have our first seminar workshop for all the communities. We usually get pretty broad attendance there. And at that time, we give best practices, technical support, have the communities that have been very successful come out and present to the communities that are there. And then also at that time, they can sign up for one-on-one sessions with myself and Dan and some of the other people at Alloy and some of the other people that support this project to really help them bring projects to light that are going to work and really help the communities. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I think Kelly's coming up also. Thank you for your presentation. I will open it up. Commissioner Driehaus, any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. This is one of my favorite grants, as you may or may not know. And I'm glad that we are working together with the block grant and the revitalization grant to get the biggest bang for the buck here and make the process more efficient for the communities which have to apply in it. That is not always easy for a community that does not really have the resources to have a grant writer or somebody on staff to apply for these grants. So it's really important, and I love the map too that shows that many of these communities are taking advantage of this grant. So super excited about it. Appreciate the information about the criteria related to these so that it's clear as to why projects were chosen versus why projects maybe were not chosen, because you've got clear criteria that you are shooting for. And so I think that is very helpful for us to understand. The one thing, and I want to congratulate the communities that were successful here. I mean, it really is a big deal to have them move forward with some of these catalytic projects in their business districts. We've seen this play out over and over again in different communities. And so I'm very excited about the opportunities that exist for those that won the grants. I have one, it's not so much a question as a comment. So 2.2 million was available. We allocated 2.15. There is a delta there of about 50 grand, right? That was left unallocated. And so I have at length gone through this with Holly Chrisman to get a better understanding of why we didn't have that 50, and I know it's 50 grand and compared to some of these larger grants, that is not a big amount. But this money was allocated by the commission to be used for this purpose, for economic development out in the 49 jurisdictions. And so I got an explanation as to how some projects were not ready. They just didn't hit the mark. They didn't hit the criteria that you so carefully outlined for us. And so I appreciate that, but something does then come to mind because there were a number of projects that were not funded. I do wonder, and you mentioned it, this process that you do with the communities to make sure they understand the criteria, they understand what a successful application might look like by way of project readiness, because my understanding is a lot of these were just not project ready. It's not that they're not valuable projects, they just didn't meet the criteria. And so I'm hopeful that as we move through this and we continue to offer this to the local jurisdictions, they to understand that this is what you need to do in order to get these, successfully get a grant, and then they can maybe hone in on projects that are shovel ready and that do meet the criteria. So I just wanted to offer that because I know some of the money got diverted to another program. It's fine, except that we allocated it for this program. And so that's my concern, right? I feel a little bit of tension around it, but knowing that, having heard the explanation as to why some of them simply didn't qualify is helpful. But I'm hoping that in the future we can expend all of the money on these economic development grants and make sure that the communities have access to as much resource as possible through the partnership with the county to catalyze these projects. So I have a little bit of frustration that 50 grand went somewhere else, and I'm hoping that in the future the communities can take advantage of every dollar that's in this pot. So I just wanted to offer that. I haven't talked to either one of you about that. I've talked to Holly quite a bit about it, but I did want to share that perspective with you. But thank you so much for the work you've done. Thank you to the intern for putting the presentation together. It's very helpful. And again, I'm very excited that these communities won these grants and could take advantage of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. Of course, this program is so important to so many entities. I just had a couple questions. You mentioned early on, Kelly, about the commitment of some of the applications, the applicants, their funding commitment. Like I think the first one you mentioned, they had committed so much money to this project. If I could get a list of those entities that have actually committed money ahead of time on these projects, that would be good for me. I think Sycamore Township was one of the ones you mentioned. Also respect the process that you guys have put in place to evaluate who should get what. I also respect the diversity of the allocations that's shown on the map. And also sometimes some of the same people or same areas seem to get the money, and I'm glad that we're dispersing it more clearly. I also like the evaluation criteria of those who did not get chosen. I thought that was really good. And so you answered all my questions so far, and I'm looking forward to being able to approve this when it comes forth. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we check and see if we need to excuse or anything? So, okay, thank you so much. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, solid waste update. Michelle Boss. Welcome. Yeah, I'd like to, yeah. Michelle is from the Solid Waste Management Program, and so I specifically asked if my chief of staff could get you to come in. I had seen some links about different things as it relates to solid waste, and it was old stuff, and so I wanted to make sure I was current on the Solid Waste Management Program. So thank you, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm Michelle Balson, Solid Waste Manager for Hamilton County Resource. We are the Solid Waste District of Hamilton County, Ohio. And so I'll be giving a update on some highlights of our programs. But first, if you can go to the next slide. Oh, I have it. That's awesome. All right. So our mission is to reduce how much waste goes to the landfill. We are a state mandated agency. We are required, every county is required to have a solid waste district. So basically we work with communities, schools, businesses, residents to reduce how much waste they are sending to the landfill. We do a lot to encourage recycling, composting, reuse, and just a little brag, Hamilton County does have the highest diversion rate of all of the largest urban counties in Ohio. We're for 2024, we're at 53.38%, which is great. That means that we divert 53% of the waste that we generate out of the landfill into different streams. That's right, I have it. I'm looking at you again, like. So one of our biggest programs and one of the longest standing programs is our residential recycling incentive program. All 48 communities in our solid waste district participate. We do not, the city of Milford is not part of our solid waste district. They're part of Claremont. So all 48 participate in this. It's a $800,000 budget, and it's split like a pie amongst the communities based on how much they recycle and how many tons they recycle and what percentage. And it really was created to help offset the cost of curbside recycling and yard trimmings collection programs. But I would say that more and more communities are using it for other programs than just that. For example, this is a picture from the city of Norwood. They recently opened a community food scrap drop-off with those funds. So this is, where residents can come and drop off their food scraps if they don't want to compost in their backyards. A few other examples, Addison is using it for a collection day each spring for the residents, so like a special collection program. One of the things that we did with our new solid waste plan in 2024 was create a $5,000 minimum threshold for communities participating, because there was a handful of communities who they just weren't diverting very much recycling, and they were getting like, $26, which you can't really do much with that to help really impact your waste diversion rate. So we did create that $5,000 minimal threshold and really help and work hand in hand with those communities to help them increase their diversion rates. Another program that is very popular is our Household Hazardous Products collection program. In 2025, we had 9 community events and 1 big event. And this is something we've started doing over the last few years. Rather than just having 1 big event, we partner with communities to try to make the program more accessible. That was really important to us. So having a smaller event in your community makes it easier for you to attend that event. So what we were really happy with was last year, 42% of the residents who used this program had never used it before. So during these programs, we're collecting household hazardous products like pesticides, fertilizers, pool chemicals, lawn chemicals, things that could be hazardous in your home, but could also be hazardous in your trash. If you put it in your trash, it may start fires. It may cause problems for the trash collection, or in the recycling collection. It could cause a fire in the material recovery facility. So we want to get these out of the waste stream and responsibly handled. So this year we are also partnering with communities. Addison and Madeira have already had events. We're working with Forest Park, Indian Hill, St. Bernard, and Cincinnati right now, but we're hoping to increase that even more this year and have more community events. We do quite a few programs to help businesses with their diversion rates. We do a lot of technical assistance where we'll go out and help them set up recycling or composting, waste diversion programs. But one that I wanted to highlight is our 513 Green certification. We recently recognized many of these businesses at our Earth Day event, which both commissioners here attended, so thank you very much, an Earth Month pledge. But we, so far, have certified 65 organizations to date with this program. And we have different checklists depending on what kind of organization you are. So we have an office checklist, a K through 12 schools, a restaurant, and retail. And right now we're piloting, helping some of those organizations with hard to recycle items and composting collection service. So that's a pilot that we're holding right now for that program. And then another area that we work heavily in is the food rescue space. We partner with and provide support to many of our food rescue organizations in Hamilton County, which there are quite a few. One of those, as you can see, is Food for the Soul. They received grants to buy vehicles in order to both rescue the food and then also deliver that food to feed hungry people. And we know that a significant amount of the food that is going to the landfill is healthy, delicious, perfectly edible food. And we would much rather see that being feeding people than definitely going to the landfill or even composting. So all of the work that Tony Staubach, our food diversion specialist, does is helping to support them. Another thing he does is technical assistance. So he'll go out to food rescue organizations and help them. And one example here, he worked with Our Daily Bread and Last Mile to help repack lettuce that was coming from a large lettuce manufacturer in the area, but coming in giant bags that you couldn't even fit in your refrigerator. So obviously you can't just give that to people. So they were repacking that lettuce. And so far, the last 6 months, they've already rescued over 1,000 pounds of lettuce, which is a lot of lettuce, as you can imagine. That's it's pretty late stuff. In 2024, Hamilton County organizations rescued over 17,000 tons of food. And we keep seeing that number increase, which is we're really happy about that, and we want to keep seeing it more. One program that we have out right now is our Food Rescue Equipment Grant, which is $1 million that we've pulled from the carryover balance in order to help support those food rescue organizations. And we're hoping that the goal is to be able to rescue 1,250 tons more food through that support and helping to increase their capacity. So in closing, Hamilton County Resource, we're funded through tipping fees at the landfill. We are a restricted use of funds. So like I said, we're required by the state and we have to use those funds on waste diversion programs. Our budget is stable. We are right on track of spending what we were planning on spending. And we have a significant carryover balance. So we've been able to strategically invest in that in a couple areas based on the Solid Waste Policy Committee direction, and those two areas are the Food Rescue Infrastructure Grant, which I already spoke about, and then we also have an on-farm composting program where we're partnering with farmers to help support their small-scale composting so that they're able to take food scraps. Farmers are great partners for composting because they already have a lot of the equipment that they need. They're used to that kind of work, getting dirty, and they also have an end use for the compost, and they really appreciate the soil amendment. So we were hoping to partner with 4 to 5 farms. We received 21 farms interested in the program. So there is a big interest in the farming community for that support. And I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. Commissioner Driehaus, you have anything?
I think you should put up that last slide because I'm getting a kick out of it. The one with your contact information.
Oh, with the apple?
I'm like, oh, that's
okay.
that's
I'll do.
That is so you, Michelle. I love that. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Tony, for being here. In addition to Michelle, I just want to double down on a couple of things that you mentioned. The diversion rate, I think, is something to be really proud of. This 53% is not only higher than our competitive set, but quite a bit higher than our competitive set. So you guys are doing a really fantastic job of diverting waste from the landfill, and so I applaud you for all the work that you're doing now and all the work you've done in the past to make sure that we remain the highest diversion rate in the state. So really something to be proud of. I wanted to have you just elaborate just a little bit on the organics piece because it's been such a big deal and a topic of conversation for the last couple of years with the Solid Waste Policy Committee. We had that 5-year plan. It talked about this diversion and how we do diversion in Hamilton County, whether it's recycling or organics or anything else. And so this plan calls for more attention to organics. And so hence the pilot program that you just referred to. Can you just elaborate a little bit on what that looks like now and what the expectation is as we move further into collecting organics, and what you are seeing by way of, is that one big facility? Is it a multiple facilities throughout the county? I mean, what does that look like a couple years out?
Sure. So we did a study, an organics processing capacity study, and found that we needed about 18,000 tons of processing just for residential, more for commercial. And we really don't have much food scrap processing happening. All the facilities that we have are under 500 square feet. They're small community composting. But the solid waste district has a history of not owning or operating facilities. We don't, it wasn't as easy as just like, let's build a composting facility. We have a history of partnering with the private sector. So the idea was, let's look at how could we build a public-private partnership and what could we do to support that infrastructure and see it actually happen, but not be the ones just going out and building it and doing it all of ourselves, because that's not really in our wheelhouse. So we did do that study, and we have put out a few things. So we put out a request for interest on a larger public-private partnership, which is something that we're still evaluating. And then we also did this on-farm composting to try to build up those partnerships, and we're seeing a lot of interest in the on-farm. So the study came out, and most of the public, the stakeholder input, directed us away from having one big composting facility. Even if it wasn't us building it, they really, most of the stakeholders did not want to see just one big composting facility. They wanted to see a decentralized approach, which is actually becoming more common across the country, of having not one big facility, not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, having it, in multiple areas and on multiple levels. And so the study said 3 medium-scale composting facilities would take the residential material, but we want to see more than just the residential food scraps being composted. So right now we're looking at how do we support those public-private partnerships, and support the people who are interested in doing it and making it happen, and build that capacity without Hamilton County going out and building a facility. The study estimated that it would cost between $7 and $14 million to just do one facility that would take 5,000 tons of food scraps a year. So that is significantly expensive, and also it's inadequate for how much we need. So we're looking at how do we build those partnerships now.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to emphasize too that the farm project is a pilot program it was to gauge interest, for one, which you found out that there's a lot of interest, and better understand what the partnership looks like with some of these organizations in the county. But I just want to note that the cost would be borne through the tipping fee. You mentioned it. I want to, again, reemphasize that there is a tipping fee for those that haul to Rumpke or a landfill, and so that's how we would pay for that. That tipping fee hasn't gone up in a number of years, but that would be the revenue source if we were to move in a direction where we were partnering or not with an organization in the county to start to do more organics collection. So I just wanted to make that note. One other question I have for you, we talked a lot about the grants, and I think that is the epitome of the public-private partnership, is partnering with Last Mile and partnering with Food for the Soul to help them divert. Because it's all of our goal to divert. And so these grants have been extremely helpful in helping those organizations with the vehicles they need, with the personnel they need. How much have we allocated by way of those grants over the last few years?
Oh, gosh.
No? Oh, no.
That's a good question. Do you know? You think a million? Less than a million. So we, for the Waste Reduction Innovation Grant, have been budgeting $200,000 a year. That's a $15,000 max, so you can apply for up to $15,000, and we have spent that whole $200,000 each year. But then every once in a while, we'll have like an impact grant that's like $500,000. So I could get that number to you, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Put you on the spot. My bad.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I knew it at the event you had for Earth Day, and now I've lost it.
I know. I have too. I'm sorry.
It's there somewhere. But I guess the point is that this partnership is being realized through these grants, and so it's really important for us to continue to invest. And that grant was 5-6 years old, something like that. So it's fairly recent, but it has had a huge impact. Yeah. So I really appreciate the work you're doing. It's good fun to hear the updates. So thank you.
Thank you so much for all the hard work that you do, the great work that you do. Just had a couple comments. I'm really good to see the minimum threshold of $5,000 for communities, because I think as village manager in Lincoln Heights, we were getting like $26. So I was the example you were using, I think. But I really wanted more specific information about the budget. You have a line that says you're stable due to the Solid Waste Policy Committee redirecting funding. So the information I had seen, you were not stable at that time. I don't know how long ago it was. I saw the filming of it, and you were actually presenting. So if you can get back with me on how you became stable, because it definitely didn't indicate that. I'm glad you're stable now. And I can send you that link if you'd like to see it. It is you.
Yeah, that's great.
So that would be great to get that information. And so Tony's making faces over there too. But Tony is great too with the food element of it. So thank you all for coming in and giving that information. I appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So we'll go to our next item, which is Children's Services Levy Financial Analyst. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So my name is Joe Brown. I'm here representing Clerk Schaefer
You
Hackett.
bring it up just a little.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there we go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So representing Clerk Schaefer Hackett as a managing director, we're here presenting the analysis of the Children's Services Levy over the preceding 4 years and going into its final year this year. We're calling it an analysis deliberately because an audit, the financials that we were provided by the county are audited extensively every year, right? And as well as the vendors that will show up in this analysis are also audited as part of their normal course of events every year. So our analysis sourced the pre-audited financials, if you will, and our quest was to discover where did the money go, or I'll say to confirm where did the money go, because it was a question that had been asked in a prior analysis. So there's our table of contents, and I'll really just jump into the executive summary, which our primary conclusion is that we concur with the public consulting group as well as the levy committee in the sense of the levy balance drawdown, particularly the aggressive amount of that drawdown in the last 2 years. And the underlying data is sound. We did consult the 3 prior available audits for their principal comments or disclosures and saw no reason to suspect anything to do with any of the financials regarding the Children's Services Levy. The third element of the executive summary is that the procurement and delivery processes could bear further scrutiny, right? That might be the opportunity here to get further information about, now that we've all agreed and understood at the second decimal point where did the money go, this might be an opportunity to look further at that and find out, well, what did we get for that money? Or what to do now about that levy drawdown. But that was beyond the scope of this analysis in the materials that we provided back to the county. So to walk into that, here's the key deliverables that we were commissioned to provide. I won't read those all to you, but they all generally correlate with this financial analysis of the county's audited levy balance and its contributing revenue and expense data. Here's the levy balance year over year, and you can see where the balance and the comparators there are the high and low estimates from the public consulting group's report that was also furnished for us. So you can see where they estimated the high and low of the levy balance, and you can see in 24 and 25 the significant decrease in that balance, and we're now drawn down at the end of 25 to pretty close to the low estimate. So that's kind of the story of the levy balance. Revenues and expenditures, you can see the revenues, and we'll break each of these categories out in its own slide, but the revenues were actually a pickup over the course of the 4 years, and the tall stack there being the story of the day, the expenditures increasing significantly, particularly in the last 2 years. Revenue plan versus actual. So the planned data for revenue you see is the smaller, to the left, light blue. And so the actual realized revenue for the levy was above plan, which is good news. And then we have the expenditure, right? So the plan versus actual here tracked pretty well, actually. The first 2 years of the run underperformed, or sorry, I guess overperformed in that way, coming in under plan for expenses. But then 24 and 25 significantly increased, and that's really the subject of this discussion. So if we drill into those categorical expenditures, there were 5 general categories that we correlated here and matched up with, again, what the public consulting group's analysis presented as well, which are the leading causes of this expense increase, being the out-of-home category, contracts, administration spiked 24, come down 25, and those are the 3 largest categories. We did note that kinship care took off during the course of this, but is a relatively minor expenditure in the comparison of the whole, but it did see a marked increase. So if we drill into, call it the out-of-home vendor spend, which we did have that data at our disposal, you can see the kind of Pareto case here of the critical drivers to that expense, where there were just under 260 total vendors in that out-of-home category, but you can see clearly the drivers at the top: Lighthouse, SJO Kids, National Youth. So that, in descending order, is the year-over-year analysis of the breakout of the vendors beneath out-of-home spend. If we look similarly, I'll say, at the contract services vendor spend, you can see that the top 5 vendors there that we highlight, but there are just under 1,700 total vendors in that pool, but we chose the representative few that are driving the total increase, particularly in that expenditure category. And those are the top 2. We did also break down the contract program categories, regardless of vendor. These are the categories of the spend. And you can see particularly behavioral health really taking a leap 23 into 24 and 25. But those are the top drivers in the categories of spend under contracts. In terms of the forecasted 26, barring any actuals that we wouldn't have access to at this point, the budget looks that it will outperform the plan. If the 2026 plan is achieved the way it's drawn, we would see essentially a push from 25. But you can see in the expenditure categories the way they are planned to be spent, that they out-of-home care, contracts, kinship, and adoption are all showing drawdowns in expenditure, which is good news. This slide just, again, highlights a point I think I made at the opening, that we did not reperform baseline level auditing in terms of sampling of expenditures and the actual invoicing analysis, because that would be redundant with what the county already goes through extensively every year, as well as the vendors in that same pool undergo their own audits. So this was more about just analyzing it, but we noticed nothing in the 3 relevant audits to the course of the child services levy. Nothing in there indicated anything that would cause suspicion on the underlying financials. And that's really it. So just kind of a walkthrough. Happy to answer any questions.
You took my breath away.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for your presentation. I read it earlier and looked into it, and I have a couple comments. I'll open it up for Commissioner Driehaus.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate you being here. As predicted, this is pretty straightforward. I know this is your line of business, to make things very straightforward, and you've done a good job of that, to make sure that as we contemplate what's happening with children's services and an impending levy, we have all the information we need to make a good decision, a smart decision, a decision based on facts and trends. And you've done this analysis, and it's critically important that we have this. So I'm very grateful that you did it. As you say, there are always audits being performed, and so we have that information. But this is very helpful, because a number of people in the community have asked me the question, well, we know you had a large reserve, where did it go? And this is clearly showing where it went. I have one question. I'm not sure it's a question for yourself, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and maybe in the future somebody from the TLRC or the administration can answer it. Because when you get down to it, the question we should be asking ourselves is, because we have these significant increases in spend, particularly in the out-of-home care, how do we get that under control, and or do something different to at least stabilize that spend and have it plateau instead of this increase that we've been seeing? And so this slide on page 12 that you've included relates to not only which agencies it's being spent with, but rather what the purpose is, right? What we're trying to accomplish here. And you've pointed out the behavioral health and then the other things that are listed. Are you able to dig in on these categories a little bit, or is that a question for somebody with JFS? This is what you were given, and so this is your analysis of the spend.
Correct. Our data sources that we were provided focused on the financials, not on what we would call the volume drivers or the acuity drivers. We know those things are out there, and there were conversations with the committee over the preceding weeks leading up to this presentation where we, I'll say, hypothesized, right, that there could be ways to empirically test that hypothesis of, is it being driven for these various vendors and the services they provide? Is this being driven by a volume of kids under care or the duration of their stays? That's one potential variable. Certainly the acuity, or I'll call it the mix of care that's being provided, that could be changing year over year, could be very relevant. And then what I generalize is call it the cost of quality, right? So the various vendors in that pool, the subsequent costs that they have to bear to continue to provide the same or possibly increased levels of care are all, again, hypothetical cases that went beyond the scope of our analysis. But in conversations with the levy committee, that was discussed.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I was suspected that might be the answer, that you've done an analysis within the scope of what you intended to do, and I appreciate that. I will continue to dig into these numbers, and we've got a presentation next week to help us better understand this. But I think you're right on all counts. I think it's all of the above.
Likely a
combination. Just said acuity, duration, all the things are contributing to this increase. And you're right. I mean, the acuity of the need has so increased that is driving some of the escalation in cost because of the nature of what's being provided and who is providing it, how much certification they need, education, all the other things. So again, I just am very grateful. This is kind of a nuts and bolts kind of overview on the spend down of the reserve. And I'm very, very grateful that we now have this to help inform our decisions as we move forward with this question about the levy. So very, very grateful for the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize that this analysis was done by the direction of the county because we wanted to be transparent. It's not like they came in and so we asked them to do this. We have to analyze ourselves what our vision, mission, goals are for our children. We simply have to do that. And as a social worker, I have lots of ideas of how we can do this and lots of solutions on how it's not easy, but it can be done. And but I appreciate all of you and your work that you've done. This really is helpful for the board. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Okay. All righty. Our last item on the agenda is executives. We have an executive session pursuant to ORC section 121.22G2 to consider the sale of disposition of property. I'll make a motion.
Second?
Yes.
Commissioner Dreehouse.
Yes.
Thank you.